Hey Brewster, you better not tell Coco or Wilson what you've been up to, or you're going to get in a whole ton of trouble. Warning! Do not attempt the toy destruction you see in this video at home. Leave this sort of work to the professionals. Geez, I wish I could find one. Well, hello everyone, this is a Thomas and Friends Dark Side video. I believe we are up to episode 14. I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong. This is a horror box, Thomas, I can see here. It's got the Thomas and Friends logo there. #1 rail train. Some very strange looking bits and bobs going on there. Now if I spin around the box, we get to see the nightmare continues. It seems like there is 2 variations of this train. Always curious pieces of artwork on these toys, and over here it shows you get an engine, you get 8 pieces of curved track. This was one variation. This is the one I haven't got. I've never seen that one, but I've got this one here. So as always, the box artwork and what you see in the box hauls the children in, doesn't it? If you see this, how much would you pay for a train set like this? It's actually, well, a medium-sized box as I'll call it. Well, guess what? I paid $12 for this. Yes, that there is very common on the underneath of these styles of toys. There it's showing me what batteries I need. The on and off switch is that part there. And I think the really funny read is this here, and I'll pause the video for a sec so you can have a bit of a chuckle or cry. And there's actually a very worthwhile thing here. It says, please take out the batteries after playing. The box artwork is rather nice. The Thomas Anning Clarabelle is very eye-catching. That's what I'm thinking. It's got a nice cheery face there. And also noticing here we've got the running board painted white. A lamp there. Is that a brake line? And a coupling of some nice buffers. Coming in for the unboxing, and I'm pretty sure I have not had this style of Thomas before. Although I know you'll correct me if I'm totally wrong there. Ooh, it looks really special. Okay, the box did say 8 pieces of track. I'll tell you what, it is very chunky track. Very chunky. It's got a bit of detailing of gravel, or what do they call it, on the side. The Thomas will take a closer look at very soon. 2 pieces of rolling stock. Just take note of the very large flange on the wheel there. It's got couplings very similar to Tommy Trackmaster, whatever. And a nice bundle of coal. The track system, you can see the ballast there is detailed. We've got the sleepers and pins of the track is detailed. Even the wood and the sleepers of the track. Very unusual to see that, and like a knockoff Dark Side toy, it is actually fairly robust, which is surprise, surprise. I can connect it up. You can see that it slides together like this rather nicely. I shouldn't say too many nice things about this. It is a knockoff, and you can see that it's very flexible. It's not making cricky or cracky sounds, is it? The gauge of this is actually not that far different to Lego. If that makes Lego gauge or Lego scale, whatever that is, but it's actually narrower than that. But nevertheless, it is quite a large gauge knockoff toy track. I've lost count of the different types of train tracks that I've seen, but the one bugbear to this set is there are no straights, it is all curves. And that size just had me thinking, you know what it's very similar to, and you're going to get a bit of a surprise here. The Chuggington Interactive trains sort of work on this track, as strange as this may sound. But Chuggington Interactive never had nice track like this. It always had that thing that looked like a road, which I think was part of the fail. There's a close-up of you to just show you how the wheels are working on that. It's actually just sitting on the inside, and it's sort of working on those miniature flanges that those wheels have. Well, okay, that is the circuit that that track makes up, and it sort of just fits on my turntable. Okay, let's take a look over the rolling stock. This is obviously a coal carrying load. This is strangely detailed. We've got the springs there, and it looks like bits and bobs that may be parts of the braking system there. Maybe you can tell me what you think those pipes are there on that wagon. Like I said before, it's got big flangy wheels. The wheels are very small. It's got a metal axle, which is sort of nice to see because you're not seeing that in the real toys much these days. Yeah, to me that's just a rip of like you'd see on Trackmaster Tommy, but it feels very brittle. I wouldn't be collecting these as spares. In fact, they feel horribly brittle. So that's the coal truck. The next one is, I don't know what this is carrying. I almost said a pile of poo. What do you think? There could be sacks of potatoes. It could be sandbags for a war. Could be a war soon. Springs in the same sort of detailing, isn't it? The same underneath. Yeah, put it this way, it's not the bottom of the bottom end, but it's not the top of the top end either. When it comes to Dark Side stuff, the couplings are the same. And of course the way these things couple is something like that. I'll come along and plonk them on the rails here, fairly sloppy on that rails there. I dare say having those nice big flanges is going to stop these very light wagons from jumping off. Okay, the main attraction is, of course, Thomas the Tank. We've got the Fat Controller here. Looks like he's up in the driver's cab. Got some strange markings going on here. At the back here, it looks like the thing that you would see in the driver's cab, like where the furnace is. There's the doors to the furnace. See that? And I don't know what they are. But it is, to me, emulating what I call the old-style, American-style steam train. When I see funnels like that and things like that, to me, that's American style. Maybe you can have your say on that. We've got like a dummy wheel up here, which is feeling very dark side. We've got some very flangy wheels here. We've got a nice big traction tyre here. And I mean, that is a very serious traction tyre on that wheel. And I think I know why they're on there, because this is actually a very, very light toy train. Let's take a look at what's most important. There's Thomas there. Look at that cheery face. That looks like the earlier Tommy ones were sort of like that, although it might be different size. There's a little light down there, and there is the cow catcher, as I call them. Maybe you've got a different name for that thing there, depending on what country you're in. I know my audience will correct me on anything I say wrong. But overall, one thing about this is actually a very, very eye-catching knockoff Thomas. It's a very different style. And next thing I've got to do is put some batteries in. Actually, just before we get to the batteries bit, can you see all the grease underneath here? See, there's grease there. It has been very well lubricated, this toy. And also notice where there was grease somewhere else. Let me show you. Well, I suppose you could make a great big jelly out of that, couldn't you? That mould there. That's where Thomas is laying inside the box. But if you look very carefully down the back there, look at that oil and grease. Well, the batteries go into the back here. Remember, it was $12 for this toy. It doesn't seem like much, does it? Although sometimes these toys, you know, it might be $12 one time you see it, the next time you see it, it might be like $20. I've got to get this tab here to get that open. I'm trying some different batteries. Do you know who belongs to these batteries here? That brand there? It's one of my favourite stores in Sydney. I'm getting to like it a lot. Then it's time to seal it back up again, and we have got a little screw to put in as well. And so often with the knockoff toys, that little bit of screw detailing on the battery compartment is missing. Okay, it's the moment of truth for this Thomas. The on and off is that piece there. I wonder what sound it's going to make. Oh, fancy that. Why are we so surprised? When we turn around, we'll see a nice flashing light. Thomas coming at you. Oh, another. Actually, it's not too loud, this one. I've heard much louder than this. I've got a fair bit of grunt, actually. I'm surprised. I think this is a fairly high-speed unit. Yeah, so Fat Control's in for a hell ride. This could be like an all-time epic fail. I'm going to try and turntable this, Thomas, and when it gets going, it's going to want to take off a great might, I dare say. Okay, away we go. Wow, it actually looks rather special, doesn't it? Going along there, looks spectacular on the turntable, I must say. Go, Thomas, go! Yeah, it's sort of like, you know, a Christmas sort of Thomas in a way. You put it under the Christmas tree. Mind you, that circle isn't that big. And because of the turntable magic, we can have a nice scrutiny of Thomas as he pounds the rails here. Oh, look at him go! Yeah, it's the sort of thing you just cannot keep your eyes off, isn't it? Once you get a stare at those beautiful Thomas eyes, well, you're in love forever. You know, it's sort of a bit of a lumpy, bumpy track, but I actually don't mind that. I think it gives it character. So what's your thoughts on this knockoff Thomas toy? $12, did I get my money's worth? Or is it better off going straight in the bin? It's sort of funny, I'm just watching that front wheel there. I don't know how much work it's doing, and I can see that the traction tyre wheel's doing something. So that front wheel looks wonky, if you ask me. Yes, that front wheel, it's very lazy in a sense. Well, the middle wheel's doing absolutely nothing, it's just there for show. Well, let me come and catch this Thomas here, and I'll just try something a little bit special. Okay, you can call me a reckless daredevil if you wish, but I am curious to see whether Thomas can push Brewster here from Chuggington. Wouldn't that be a show? Hey, oh, the old Chuggington Interactive, fantastic toys. I love them. Basically gone out of the shops now where I live. Okay, let's see if this is going to work. Oh yeah, I can't believe it. Oh, we've got some Thomas and Chugger's magic going on here. You have not ever seen that on YouTube before, I guarantee it. Absolutely guarantee it. Look at Brewster, he's ripping up the rails there. Woo! Well, that's going to get the Thomas fans chatting, isn't it? Knockoff Thomas giving the real Brewster the sting. There's a nice close-up for you so you can see Brewster's wheels and how they're working on those rails there. Put it this way, it only just fits there, only just. And one wonders how long the honeymoon is going to go on for. I would have thought there'd been a train wreck, but they're actually behaving themselves rather nicely. I could probably do a bit of a high speed run for them. How much speed can this thing take? And I think Brewster's looking very, very sideways. I think Brewster's gone, and is Thomas going to follow him? Thomas is gone! Thomas is gone! Well, let me come in and turn off this very noisy horror box Thomas. Although you're probably thinking, well, Leo, it looks okay. Well, let me guarantee to you, it's a sort of toy where bits and bobs break off very easily. Okay, as you can see there. It presents choking hazards. It's got very sharp edges, very sharp along here. These toys are never finished off correctly. They're far too easy to buy. They are usually very cheap to buy as well. And sadly, I see so many people buying these things for very young children. I do wonder when the madness is going to end. Well, what to do with these wagons? You're probably thinking, oh, Leo, they're too nice. You should put them in your collection. Well, no. Let's learn something about material science. And in particular, I think of this one. Remember I said it looks like, well, maybe bags of poo on there? Well, why don't we load it with some magic poo? And we'll put a magic little explosive charge inside this to show you how rotten it is. If you're curious about the design and how this is put together, it had 2 screws underneath and the couplings fell off. See, that reminds you of something, doesn't it, hey? And like I said, it's not the bottom of the bottom end because the real bottom end stuff has no screws, so that piece there comes off, then that exposes the wheels that were riding in there. And then you can get into the, well, bags of poop and do something really nasty. We don't need to be a rocket scientist. That there is a piece of magic poop, and depending on how you fold it and roll it, you can actually make a very realistic looking poop. Maybe I should do a how to make poop video on YouTube. That'd be popular, wouldn't it? Well, with that poop there, I'm going to load it into this section here because that is the manure from Farmer McCall's farms. Got to keep a Sodor Island feel to this, hey? If not, we're going to get flagged, aren't we? And it goes on this section here like this, and I'm not going to put the charge in the poop because I'm worried. Remember I blew up that Baymax that time and it destroyed my wife's phone and caused all sorts of damage. I'm going to put the charge here. Part of it will come up and react with the poop, I hope, and the rest of it will come and obliterate the plastic down here. Okay, the wagon is locked and loaded, and if I was going to make a very simple prediction about this one, there's going to be poop everywhere. Whoa, well that was a case of explosive diarrhea. It's better out than in. That's one poop train. I'm glad I didn't have a seat on. Well, the devastation is exactly how I thought it would play out. Having that poop in the wagon has, well, helped the explosives be very destructive. The track looks fantastic. It's been broken as well. But the bulk of the train isn't up here on the table. The bulk of the train is actually down here on the workshop floor, and if I've got a torch next to my camera here, you can see that there's poop on the floor. There's all little itty bitsy bits of train, and I'll collect all these up and get them up on the table to see what we have left. And yes, that means I've got to come along and pick up the poop, pick up the wheels, and, well, pick up more poop. Well, okay, that's what I gathered up off the ground. It's a great big mixture of very small particles of plastic and very, very small particles of poop. Oh yeah, that was a great blast, and from that blast we actually learned a lot about the plastic and the way this was built and the way explosives work when they're set up in a certain way. That magic poop, well, maybe understand why it's called magic poo, because it did a magic job of blowing this truck up. One thing about this magic poo, let's say versus Play-Doh, is that if I roll it up into a ball, and I only found this out by watching my children play with this, it's actually like a high bouncing ball. It's got a lot of bounce energy. I don't know what that's called. Play-Doh won't do that, but this poo will. Now I don't know how that played out in the way that this truck got ripped apart. There's a few parts in here which tell a graphic story of how explosives work against crappy plastic. I think this is the first part to look at. On the truck, this was the bags of poo that we ended up blowing up. This was the outside, and the inside here would have had direct contact with the magic poo. And what I've noticed here, and I've seen it when I've blown up Easter eggs and everything, you can see along here that the explosives force have followed what would be like the weak line in a sense. Because where you've got these depressions and all that, might be a little bit thinner piece of plastic, and it's given explosives the easy way out. Funny thing with explosives, they will often find the weakest way out. Then again, there are other examples like this where the explosives force has just said, right, I'm out of here, and it has just torn through, hasn't even followed the pattern line here. Chunky. It was curious to see the end pieces hold together, but then again, we're looking at a bit of a strong point with that shape there. There's two of those. But I think when I see the bottom of the truck, remember this wasn't in direct contact with the magic poo, it has been obliterated, so the shockwave has permeated through that little wagon very extensively. I mean, look at the breakage there. Okay, it's quite amazing to see. You see ripped up bits like this. It's telling you a story, isn't it? After an explosion, the wreckage always tells a story. And you may be wondering about those very flangy wheels. Well, one set has survived. There it is there. You can barely tell it's been there a blast, but this one here has been hammered, or one wheel has been completely ripped off. And while we're thinking about things like that, here is the track. Okay, and maybe from this you really start to see the forces at play. So the sleepers there ripped away from the track there. It's divided down here. Okay, you're starting to see what was going on, aren't you? I was actually surprised to see this amount of damage here. Okay, but hey, it might be all down to the magic poo. Oh yes, there is that saying, you can't keep your eyes off a train wreck. And really the other thing I noticed when I look across this wreckage here is there are some very, very small fragments of plastic. And again, that's a sign that we have some very serious pieces of energy being translated through that very, very cheap and nasty knockoff plastic, hey? That was all the bits that were sort of sprayed over that way, and I've got another pile like that there. They were all sprayed over that way of the table. These other big pieces were sort of laying about, some big globules of magic poo. And that was sort of the stuff that was down on the ground behind me. Yeah, that was fun. Let's move on. Our next Nightmare Thomas and Friends toy train ride comes in the form of this playset here. It was $12, just remember that for a moment. There was a tender there, which looks like Edward's tender. There was also a tender there for Henry, but it's the wrong colour. Very smallish sort of Thomas in this set here. Artwork that looks like this on the front. And as strange as this may sound, I actually purchased two of these sets. This is the other one. I think they've just flipped around the tenders there on that one. But this one was a different price, and if I can work out where I put the price, I'll let you know. This one was $18. While we're looking at the back here, we can come in and check out the dark sidiness of this, if that is a word. It says that there. It talks about the types of configurations you can build with this. Looks like it's got a couple of straights, how you join the track, how you join the trains, how you put some batteries in. There's a picture of Thomas chugging along with, well, looks like he's stolen some tenders, doesn't it? And down here is a bit of a dark side read. To rank first among similar products. So I'm not sure what they're ranking this against, and I do laugh here. It says not suitable for children under 3 years. And it sort of makes a big joke of the fact that, well, wouldn't this toy be for very young children? The other notable fact about these boxes are they're pretty knocked around. Now, I think that's sort of telling me that these have probably been in and out of cars or whatever, tried to be sold over and over, but no one's touched them. That's my theory behind that. Let me get this Nightmare Train out of the box. Now, it comes with a fairly, what I call, ratty track system. I think that's reminding me of another toy. If I can remember what it is, I'll tell you. There's the curves. Up here is these very strange pieces here. Oh man, these are rubbish. Classic sort of rubbish. There's Thomas there. Oh, look at that, he's pretty broken. Look at the back there. Thomas has already been smacked around. Okay, and there's the other tender. Man, this is getting right down to the bottom end of the scale. In fact, the more I look at this, the more I'm actually seeing broken. I bet you that these have been out as display toys. That there is broken as well. Welcome to the dark side as always, isn't it? And I tell you what, that is a very heavy little train. So there must be a giant motor in this thing. Well, I've got two of them to play with, and I'll get both of them set up. Noticing the beautiful ripped Thomas and Friends logo there, I'd say this has been a rebox as well, because it's got a great big fat piece of tape there. I'll try and get this one out. Oh yes, there's a certain smell and odour to these things, I tell you, and a feel. If only you had feel-o-vision and smell-o-vision on YouTube. That track there, isn't that a different coloured plastic to the other set? There's a piece of curve from the other set, so we're getting some variation on track. Let's just check for damage, hey? Considering we can start to see what we're up against here. Okay, horrible feel to these things. I wonder if it's got fluctuating eyes. Looks like it may have the old fluctuating eyes. It's going to be blinking at us like a little friend. Let's take a look at this very rad tender as well. I don't mind the coal detailing. That's sort of cool. The way it sparkles there. It looks like that set is all intact. Okay, I've got everything out of the box. It's sort of funny, you know, you strip away toys out of the box and it just doesn't seem like you get very much at all. Yes, it's a curious little Thomas, this one. We've got the eyes, you know, we've got bits which want to sort of fly off very easily. The only thing stopping that from coming off is a sticker detailing there. I think for the fact we've got detailings like that, and, you know, detailings like this is almost a miracle. It's a knockoff toy. It's almost detailed better than some of the real ones. I am going to put batteries in this, but I'm also going to open it right up to see what is going on in here, because I'm trying to work out what's making this Thomas heavy. Always curious about what's going on inside. Okay, well, the battery compartment is under here, and that looks like a normal battery compartment. How many times you've seen that over in a toy? And we will take a look inside this one. And I thought there might have been some sort of mechanism up here working the eyes, but the eyes are just independent in there. That, you know, it would have been a fluctuating eye Thomas maybe in another model, but not this one. It's just got independent eyes, which some people may like or dislike. The weight in this toy, I thought, wow, that's a giant speaker, isn't it? If I put my finger in the middle there, it wants to tilt back. So the weight in this toy is actually the motor, and it's a very unusual thing to see the motor vertical. Okay, normally in these toys, the motor is laying down. Some sort of chip thing there, that might be the noise maker on this thing that's driving this. And then it's upside down at the moment, you wouldn't be able to tell. I've got some electronics fans that watch my videos. The switch is down there at the back, and often you can tell what's going on in the factory by looking at the way this is finished off and the type of solder joints and stuff. Hey, what do you reckon? Looks cheap and nasty. Well, let's power it up and let's just see exactly what this Thomas can and can't do. Okay, let me throw in some batteries into this train. Hopefully I can get the polarity around the right way. Have you worked out the company who sells this branded style of battery, hey? Those in America may have no trouble understanding that one, but maybe people in Australia will struggle with that one. All I can say is if you've got the time to go to one of these stores in Australia, which are a little bit Spartan, please do so. It's an excellent store. Well, we saw it had a big speaker in it. There's also a big area here for the noise to get out. There is that symbol there, which is sort of curious as well. Maybe people can enlighten me into what that means. There's the on-off switch there. Let's just see what sounds are going to come out of this Thomas. Oh, I can hear the motor. I can hear the sound chip. The eyes don't move because we saw there's nothing powering the eyes. Oh man, I tell you what, that is a high-speed unit. Very fast. It's a sort of Thomas, I bet you'd be in more order if I set it down here on the table. Whoa, oh, it's just going to want to slam. It's got no traction because, well, it's got no traction tyres. That's the problem when you don't have traction tyres. You can have all the speed in the world, but without traction tyres, it's not going to do you any good, is it, Thomas? Oh! Just do a nice little close-up of how the wheels don't get any traction on the table here. Oh yeah, Thomas going nowhere. You need traction tyres, Thomas, you need them bad. Oh, he's wanting another kiss. Steady up there, none of that on this channel, please. So this Thomas is a little bit different. Let me just turn it off there. We've got wheels that are sort of like Trackmaster 2 Thomas's, where we've got slots on the wheels. Almost, you could call it a gear, almost. and that actually connects in with the track, and that's what's going to give us our traction, we hope. So if I turn Thomas back on, we might see he works much better on the track than he does the table. Go Thomas, go! Whoa, yes he does, he loves being on that track. Okay, go! Whoa! So that was the Thomas, that was the one which wasn't broken. I can't remember whether that was the $12 or the whatever other dollar set. Now, I've just had a bit of a peek inside the one here, which I was suspected it had been used as a bit of a toy on show. It's already been broken. And it sort of got me spooked because, look at this, if I look inside the battery compartment here, well, hello. We've got batteries in there. Now, strangely, they were batteries that I used to use a long time ago. I haven't used that brand of battery there from Aldi for a long time. I'm not going to say why. And it's still working, okay? But what I will do is I'll put some fresh batteries into this one here. I wonder if... Now I'm sort of spooked. I wonder if this is a train that I've looked at a long time ago, but I never showed on YouTube or something. Mind you, I do think it's one that's been on display for the fact it's a bit belted up. I think seeing that broken piece there was telling me a story. Okay, I've got new fresh batteries in this one here. It sort of got me semi-spooked because I've done that many of these videos. Have I shown this one before? I personally don't think I have, because when I look at these toys, I tend not to keep the track. I tend to keep the box and I tend to keep the Thomas. I know that because I've got a whole box of them. I rarely ever do I keep the whole set as a whole. But maybe the audience will say, oh no Leo, you showed that back in episode 4. Well, I think that's part of the problem because I've done that many episodes of this. I mean, how would I ever know? The track system this one uses, I believe I've seen this with little toy cars, more so than trains, and the cars, they quite often will be elevated and all the rest of it. It's got connectors like this. That basically very simply connect in like this. It's very flimsy and very simple, but hey, sometimes, well, maybe that's all you need. So you sort of get a bit of a feel for what you're dealing with there. At least we've got straights, and I mean that other set had no straights, and really straights are sometimes what makes a train set. I know it can be quite deceiving when I'm showing these toys. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, they look pretty good, Leo, and all the rest of it. But it's when you have a closer scrutiny, it starts to all fall apart. There's overspray on Thomas's funnel there. This Thomas here, the sticker work on it is actually not too bad. It looks like someone's taken a bit of care in putting stickers on. But when you look at the other one, well, the stickers, well, Sticker Friday, it's all been put on crooked there. I mean, that's your classic sort of dark side going on. There is always a grimy feel to these. I don't know whether it's grease or what it is. It must be horrible in the places where these come from. The wheels, I dare say, would come off very simply. I'm not going to rip it off yet. I want to play. But I think, I mean, the Thomas is there. You know, I suppose, yes, I've seen far worse than that. But where this set really falls over is when you start to look at these very strange tenders that come along here. Now, we know Thomas isn't a tender engine. Who knows why these are in there. But this is a sort of classic fodder which just falls apart oh so easily. Okay, you imagine what would happen when it all starts to go wrong and little children start to put things in their mouth and whatever else, and who knows what chemicals are on this. You know, that's really the weak link in all this. This is where it all really gets dark and nasty. This is sadly the biggest letdown on this toy. Yes, it's one of these things that's just sharp. Everywhere you put your finger on this, there's really sharp edges. As we saw, already broken. Okay, nothing but nightmare. Well, from all this nightmare Thomas on the table here, maybe I could set up a Thomas versus Thomas race with these little toys. And one thing about this is I've got lots of straight to set up a nice racing track. Okay, I've got a fantastic raceway here. I've used all the straights from both of those train sets. There's a spare set of curves there. And what I can do is I can come along and grab a Thomas and we can just see how sprightly he's going to be here. Okay, here he goes. Go, Thomas, go! And he's a very fast runner indeed. Very, very fast. Extremely fast. But he sometimes has a little passion for running off the rails. I don't know whether he's going to show us that or not. He gets very excited and will sometimes come adrift. Oh, there he goes. He's just failed on me. Fail, fail, fail. It's rather an annoying toy for the sound. What is it with the sound chips in these knockoff toys? It's always the same. Well, let me set up a bit of a Thomas with a train and Thomas of a train battle. With that Thomas there, I can have 1, 2, 3. Maybe that's the educational part of this train. It's like a number counting train. But with this other one, the one that's got the broken pin, well, it sort of renders number 3 useless. Bye-bye. And I'm just going to have this one here as number 1 and 2. So it's 1, 2, 3 Thomas versus 1, 2, and then the other epic fail of these toys is, well, where's the on switch? It's actually underneath. So it sort of makes it a little bit tricky to get going. Now let me just hold Thomas there for a bit and I'll get this other one going. Get that Thomas going. And we'll get, oh, there you go, epic fail, epic fail. Oh, it's just going to ram to the back there. What is going on? That one's just slipping. And this one's having a nightmare time. Okay, well, I've sort of got something going on. Oh, no! Whoa! This is just very, very strange. And Thomas there is, well, he's having a bit of a fail, but he will soon catch up. A lot of wheel spinning going on. A lot of crazies. And the nightmare Thomas is going to come along. Can give it a slam and a number 3 there. Giving it the big heave-ho. Come on, go Thomas, go! Go Thomas, go! Maybe we introduce the number 2 here in the front of Thomas and give him a bit more. Okay, let's see what happens now. Oh, let's give it a bit more nudge, nudge, shove, shove, wink, wink, isn't it? A bit more going on now. He's got to push that extra load around. That gives the back Thomas there a bit more weight. Oh, he catches it and he catches up, gives it a slam. Come on, do something. You're going to have to do something, Thomas. Oh, a lot of wheel slippage going on there, and Thomas goes behind. Yes, something funny goes on with that front one. It gets a bit of wheel slippage going on here. Oh, doesn't like it at all. Come on, Thomas. Well, now he's stuck there. That's a bit weird. This Thomas going to come along here and give him a nudge. Oh, there's a slammer. Now he's stuck. This is very strange. Oh. Well, I just got rid of that number 2 wagon. That was one of the strangest things I've ever seen with a bunch of knockoff trains. Who would ever have guessed that was going to happen? Okay, maybe I'll be a bit tricky here and I'll just send Thomas the other way, hey? What do you reckon's going to happen now? Who's going to win in this one? Oh my goodness me, they've kissed together there, and it is a Thomas versus Thomas standoff. Well, that's the 1, 2, 3 Thomas, just in a complete shoving fight with the number 1 Thomas all by himself. So it's a complete stalemate. The 1, 2, 3 Thomas head to head with the number 1 Thomas all by himself, and they're going absolutely nowhere. Very strange activity for toy trains, very strange indeed. Well, I'll just try another head-on collision thing, get that one going again. Although it's starting to get very fail, isn't it? And we'll get this one going here, okay. Something's going to have to give here, but the other one's actually stuck and it's going to come in for a header. Whoa! Not much fun at all when they do that. Not much fun, is it? Hey? I'm sort of desperate. Maybe this will get the party started. Oh. I don't know if it's going to work or not. It'll be another epic fail. Well, there you go. At least we've got something that can push them along. And you don't see that on YouTube every day, that's for sure. Oh, he's taken off. Oh, he's a runner, he's a runner. It's a runaway! It's a runaway! It's a runaway! Naughty, naughty runaway Thomas, I'll put you away. Yeah, that was getting very crazy. But as for these 2 guys here, I'm giving these guys epic fail. They just didn't do it for me. I'm sorry about that. But those 2 guys there, bad boys. Quite a curious little Thomas, isn't it? Hey, you're going to probably be saying, well, Leo, it didn't seem too bad. I think what we can see is when you don't have traction tyres, even if you do have like wheels like that mesh into the track, well, you sort of don't really get that much traction. You really can't do much work. As for the Thomas face on this, you know, well, to me, it's a bit of a classic sort of happy face. And I'm going to keep one of these trains. This is the nice one, I think. Mind you, it's a Sticker Friday one. The one which is broken, I think it's got the good stickers on. That side's okay, as long as I show it on that side. This one here, nice sticker work on this, but it's a bit banged up here, and if I turn it around here, unfortunately it's got a crack here. Well, I'm actually a little bit curious how this Thomas would go. Being quite evil here, Thomas. We might fill it with some magic poo. Ooh, what do you think, eh? And we'll put a charge into this, and I wonder how many pieces I can fragment this Thomas into but preserve the face. That's going to be my challenge in this. Do you think I can do it? Do you think I can do it, Thomas? I wonder what the audience thinks. Do you think I can do it? So I've set myself a very, very mean challenge. Once this is filled with magic poo and there's a charge in there, the bulk of this Thomas is going to get obliterated into tiny pieces. I want to save the face, but I do have a strategy. I'm going to put in something just behind the face here to decouple the shockwave from the explosives. Maybe we'll learn something from this, because if I don't have an educational aspect, well, someone might just flag the video. Do you know something that may work? I think I've got it right here. I think if I put bubble wrap in behind Thomas's face there, it's going to save his little face. So I do have a plan of attack. I have pulled apart Thomas, as you can see. I have taped up the parts that would leak down into his wheels. I'm going to try and have this toy on when I blow it up. Don't ask me why. I think it's going to be more dynamic. I'm going to put the charge, when we get round to doing it, right in the middle here. And once Thomas is filled with goo, I'll invert this piece here, fill it with goo, and it will basically mean the whole Thomas is going to be pack loaded with goo. Now, what I'm going to do to try and save the face is introduce a little wrap of bubble wrap there and feed that up there into the face area. Now, the face area is actually a separate part. I'm hoping that's going to decouple the explosives, save the face, but I'm going to leave the screw in there. Something's going to have to break here, and that screw actually goes up into the funnel piece. So it's a bit of a strong point up here. I'm hoping this works. I've never done it before. Time to put the poo in. Well, this here is a whole mass of magic poo. One thing about this stuff here is it's actually not wet. It doesn't make things wet. I sort of like that. But another thing about it is it will take shape. As you can see, it's taking shape at the bottom of this here. So when I put this into the Thomas, I'm going to have to let it settle and take shape. And that's going to be the little tricky part. So maybe it's best to do little bits at a time and try and get it to settle in there. Yes, now we all know what's inside Thomas the Tank, don't we? I'm sure there'll be lots of little weirdo comments derived from that one. Now, I'm being very diligent here. I want the magic poo to be hard up against as many non-face components as I possibly can, because I'm here to try to prove a point and try to educate you in, well, how things sometimes work and sometimes don't work. I've also got to leave a space for the motor, because we can't have, poo oozing out, can we? One of those little things, it's like the toys that make the funny sound, isn't it? When you put your finger in, oh, is he going to do it or not? I can't hear it yet, can you? No. But that's what I'm going to try and do. I've got to leave a space for the motor, but I don't want to have any air voids in here. I'll just have a test fit here to see how I'm going for my void for the motor. You've never seen that before on YouTube, have you, boys and girls? I certainly haven't. Okay, it's feeling very strange, though, any way I could say it. How you feeling there, Thomas? Yes, thank goodness you can't talk, eh? But we're starting to... I'm really... Man, it's a lot heavier now, I'll tell you that. And what I'm going to aim to have here is, I'll show you where I'm going to put the charge. I'm going to try and get it right... I've got to get this out without pulling the poo out. Right in the middle of Thomas, if that makes any sense. Oh, look, that's all sort of stuck and gooby. I'm going to try and get the charge... basically right in the middle here. Oh yeah, this is actually feeling really good. Really good. Look at that. But some of these days, I just feel like I'm turning into a madman. I think this is one of them. Well, Thomas is cram loaded with this magic poo. To give you some sort of educational scope to this, imagine if you're a rocket scientist and you may have a problem where you've got to blow up something to let something go, but preserve something else. Well, maybe this is an example of it. I'd hate to be doing something not educational. I'm going to give Thomas a standoff here with some blue tack, because hopefully, yes, he still runs. You getting ready to blow, Thomas? You getting ready? Hey Thomas, did you ever wonder why the fat controller was sending you to the Sodor Island sewage works? bust my buffers. That was amazing. Well, that spot there was where that Thomas train used to be. That's past tense. It has been completely and utterly disintegrated. In fact, the wagons that were behind there have been destroyed as well. They didn't have anything in them. They were just sacrificial things in that blast. Down on the floor here, and I've got my trusty torch next to me here. I'm going to have to come along and pick up all these bits and bobs of what's left of this train. Some very important pieces down here to tell the story of what survived and what hasn't survived. In particular, that piece right there. Well, there's a battery terminal there, but on the ground I'm finding all sorts of little tiny pieces and bits of poop everywhere. Back up on the table here really paints a picture of the power of that blast, or more so the effect of the magic poo combined with the explosives. I mean, look at the electric motor there. Completely destroyed. It has been pushed in. That's what that goo does. The magic poo. It's like magic, isn't it? That there, that's an interesting part there. We'll take a closer look at soon. Just all sorts of bits and bobs of the Thomas, and the face. Have I done my objective here? Have I saved the face? Well, what do you think? Well, it's missing the eyes. That's still all intact, isn't it? So, did my little process work? Well, sometimes I get it right, sometimes. Let me haul all this stuff and get it back to the epicenter. Oh yes, the mad bomber has been at work here, but from this carnage we can actually learn something. In the tub here are the parts that I found on the floor, and on the other side here are the bits and bobs that I found on the table. But the piece I'd like to take a look at first is the piece that was the bottom of this toy that was against the table. I think this is a very important piece to look at, because the only thing holding this together is that blue tack that I had, which was giving Thomas a stand-off so his wheels could run. That piece of plastic there, and the holes were for the speaker, has been completely and utterly destroyed. It's telling you something, isn't it? Look at that there. Little bits of fragmentation, a lot of punch. The next parts we'll take a look at were the parts that I found on the ground behind the table, and it starts to paint a graphic picture of how Thomas exploded. Okay, these parts here are some of the electrical components that were in Thomas. The battery has got a dent right there on it, showing you some forces going on. That's the back of the electric motor. That is part of the sound chip there. There is also there that I'm pointing the tweezers at. The spring from where the batteries were. Little bits of wiring, the speaker, and that was the other part of the speaker. I've just been magnetised to that. It's telling you a story of what went on. Okay, Thomas's wheels had all gone to the ground. These are the ones that were on the chassis in a sense. They had the hole there, but the ones here are a little bit different. They would have been on the axle. These ones here would have been the power wheels. Notice how the axle's totally missing. Oh, I love this piece here, obviously down the side of Thomas. Look at the way it's been bent. Look at the way the plastic has been marked. And that's starting to show you just how much force was going on when this went, okay? Other bits like this, I think the stickers really held these pieces together. That's why they are some of the larger pieces. Once again, you can see the stress, that white mark that's going on with the forces at play. This is like the front part. This will build to another bit of a story. This is the front of the running board. Remember, Thomas's face would have been just up here. Okay, so this part here, and it's also quite an intricate part, lots of curves and stuff that would have been hard to break up. And basically, there wasn't any of the magic poo up here. This piece here is the top of what you say is boiler. There's the dome there, the driver's cab. Once again, we've got a structure here that's fairly strong, but then again, it has been ripped right through there by the explosives. Those explosives basically don't hold up for anything. And this other component here, I thought this would have come off in a bigger piece. There's his little baby coal bunker there, and the back of the cab, and once again, just a sheer force has ripped that apart. It's quite amazing, isn't it, when you start to see how things break apart. And the rest of the things in the tub here are just little tiny bits and bobs and a whole ton of magic poo. So your sort of typical fodder after you blow up something. And one of the sacrificial lambs on this thing was down on the ground here, and the other part of that was up on the table. And thinking of that strange number 3 tender, well, there is the other half of it. I don't know how it got pulled apart from the blast. These were just like little sacrificial pieces at the back of Thomas. Number 2 would have been connected to him, and as you can see there, it has basically come along and broken that. I was going to blow these up, but they've sort of been blown up for me. Does show you how cheap and shoddy and nasty these toys are. Completely broken. Okay, the next bit of focus is going to be on the pieces that have been on the table. Oh, I think we'll start off with some electrical components. Okay, that is the electrical switch. That was right underneath at the back of Thomas. Look at the way that has been ripped apart. This is the other battery. It's been given a big whack there, much bigger than the other one. Okay, sorry about that. The people who sell those batteries, the back of the motor, or another part of the back of the motor. This is the drive axle on this toy. And noticing how that's just been ripped to shreds. Another part of the battery component, I think, the most spectacular show of force here, even though that was in its own little plastic housing inside. The electric motor here has been given a big whack or boof on this side. It's blown off the back of it there, and it's basically totally destroyed. Totally destroyed. And down on the table there is bits and bobs. In fact, that's part of the silly thing that was behind Thomas, wasn't it? Bigger pieces like this. I don't know why that has sort of survived. I was just trying to... Oh, there's some screws up there. Was that the back of Thomas? Was that the very back of the toy? I don't know. I really don't know at the moment. There's his eyes, thank goodness. But the main reason why we blew this up, because we were learning something, well, we're there to preserve this part here. And really, hopefully, it was all because of that stuff there. Sort of spooky when you see it like that. The eyes out. I don't know whether I should try and get the eyes back in. I don't know if I can. Oh, there he is. Hello, I'm back alive. But what is very important about this here is it's hopefully taught us a vital lesson. And maybe if you were near a big blast or a bombing, you know, the first thing I'd run and go and get some bubble wrap and wrap myself up in a bundle of layers of this stuff with a little breathing hole, of course. And if I put this back to where I had it before the blast, we'll start to maybe see how this made the front of Thomas survive. Okay, so there would have been all goo in here, and notice the way this is ripped through here. It's ripped across the top here. Okay, also we were dealing with a nice strong point here as well. But the reason why the explosives couldn't come along and track into this part here and take out the face was because we had that bubble wrap here was stopping the shockwave from getting in here and destroying the plastic from this point on. I think it's a valuable lesson, and hopefully we learned something in this video. I think the part that really amazed me is that this bubble wrap here, well, apart from the goo sticking to the bottom of it here, it's basically totally unaffected. Somehow, the explosives had no effect on this piece here at all. So maybe next time you're going out somewhere dangerous, well, you know what you're going to pack, aren't you? This stuff. To do the trick here in saving Thomas's face, there are some other things that I could have used. Maybe I could have used a little satchel of sawdust. Anything to decouple the shockwave does the trick. But bubble wrap's just so useful, and it's all pre-made and it's got the bubbles of air. I think that's what I love about it. You know, it's got magical properties that, well, can save your face. Let's not forget how Thomas used to look. Remember, I do have the other one here. I'm not totally destructive. I didn't blow both of them up. I know some people would have said, oh, come on, Leo, blow more up. There he is. Remember how he looked and how cheerful he was, but with one charge of some magic poop in the right spot, that's what I was able to turn Thomas into. A total and utter train wreck and all bits and bobs there. But hey, don't worry. I made sure Thomas is still smiling. Well, I've got this problem. There are these little tiny, horrible tender trucks, but I've got a friend who we haven't seen in a while might give me a hand. Hello, Mr. Hammer. As we have learned in previous videos, Mr. Hammer tends to hold no prisoners. Ready to play, Mr. Hammer? Let's do it. Well, I'm going to give Mr. Hammer a lesson in counting, but we're not going to start at 1. Oh yeah! 2, 3! 2, 3! 2! 3! 2! 3! Ah yes, a maths lesson with Mr. Hammer is one you'll never forget. Well, apart from a crazy maths lesson that means nothing, what we have learned here is this stuff is made of complete and utter rubbish. It takes nothing to break this stuff up. Mr. Hammer had to give it the slightest of taps and it breaks apart. Mr. Hammer, what's happened? Oh, you're missing an arm. I'll be here somewhere. Ah, there we go. Tender to the rescue. Got your arm. Don't worry. We'll put you back together so you can hammer again. Oh yeah, the mysterious world of the Thomas and Friends, Thomas the Tank Pinatas. Do you think that's a legit one or do you think it's a knockoff? How about this one here, eh? Look at the price I pay for these. Basically $20. I don't find any hit toy company thing on this. I don't find anything associated with Thomas and Friends. In fact, half the time I see them with the faces ripped off, or I see them with a face like this. So what do you know about Thomas the Tank in pinata form, hey? Do you think that's the legit one, or do you think it's a knockoff? Nowhere on it does it say Hit Toy Company, nothing licensed to Thomas and Friends on that. And like I said, they've often got strange faces, missing faces, and occasionally you'll get one with a Thomas face. Sadly, I'll have to come along and destroy these guys in another video. They're just too bulky to have in my Thomas collection. And I'm wondering what would be a nice way to get rid of these guys. Why am I thinking of the Icta lawnmower? I remember someone suggested that on how to get rid of the horrible Spider-Man thing. And just thinking of Spider-Man, let me just drag this in here. Very nice that there were some people who watched the Spider-Man video and answered the questions that I had on there about this Spider-Man here. Our local fair was on, early spring one, but it's not quite spring yet. And I was able to pick up some more very, very nasty Spider-Man knockoff toys. This one was a nice one to find. It was $12. Look at that there. Hey, some of the evil guys, and I think, isn't that Venom there? That weird guy in there, and I know you'll correct me if I'm totally wrong. But more importantly, someone said to me that that was actually a real toy. Well, let's be educated here. I'm pretty sure that's a knockoff because I went out and I purchased a real one. It is actually quite amazing how many people get mixed up between the real toy versus the knockoff. So in essence, I've got enough Spider-Man stuff to have another individual Spider-Man knockoff video. He's actually quite a popular character. And I will come in and I will get rid of these guys in the next Thomas and Friends Dark Side video. Well, I hope you enjoyed this Dark Side video. I'll tell you what, I certainly had a blast. That's how I keep that blown up Thomas there after I've blown it up. Don't you love it like that in the bag? As always, thanks for watching and bye for now.